Jenice was feeling extra happy today because her long-awaited vacation was just a few days away. It was her last week at work, and the thought of her break made her excited. After finishing work, she headed home, eager to relax. When she got home, she saw her husband's suitcase packed in the hallway, which made her smile. She thought he had packed for their vacation. He usually wasn't good at packing, but this time he had done it all by himself and even remembered a travel pillow. It was sweet. She called out happily, "Honey, I'm home." But her happiness quickly turned to confusion when she saw her husband sitting at the kitchen table with a glass of wine, dressed as if he was about to leave. "Are you leaving?" Jenice asked, confused. Her husband, Sen, replied seriously, "I need to leave now. I think I might be dealing with depression, and I need some time to take care of myself." Jenice was confused and asked, "Why now? Can't you wait one more week?" Sen snapped back, "You wouldn't understand. You're always happy at work, but I'm here feeling down and need a break." Then Jenice noticed a bank statement on the table. It showed that Sen had moved the money they had saved for their vacation into his personal account. "Wait, what about the vacation? We saved this money for the trip to the Bahamas." "I've been looking forward to it," Jenice said, shocked. Sen defensively replied, "I didn't say my job won't give me time off. I told him today that this is my last week, and we never decided on a trip date. Why plan it now when I can't go?" Jenice was hurt and frustrated, watching Sen pack his things. She pleaded, "This isn't fair. We saved this money together. If you can't wait for me, at least take your share, and I'll join you later." Sen coldly asked, "What do you want from me? Do you want me to stay and fall apart? If there's anything left, I'll bring it back. I'm already booked on a flight tonight." Jenice was stunned. She couldn't speak and retreated to her room, upset. She had noticed lately that Sen's behavior had been off, but now she understood, and it hurt deeply. Sen was leaving her to go on a vacation they had planned alone. Jenice grew up without a father, which left a void in her life. She realized that this was why she had tolerated Sen's unacceptable behavior, as she didn't know how a man should treat her. It hurt even more now to be left alone. She thought back to when she was younger and lost her mother. She went to live with her aunt, but it never felt the same as her mother's love. Jenice tried to move forward with her life, hoping to find happiness. In the beginning, when she and Sen were dating, everything seemed perfect. But over time, she noticed Sen taking advantage of her vulnerabilities. While she worked full-time, Sen had a part-time job and did very little at home. Jenice ended up doing all the household chores without much help, and Sen seemed oblivious to her exhaustion. One evening while cooking, Jenice asked Sen to help set the table, but he only replied from his computer room, "Sure, love." Jenice didn't say anything but felt the growing distance between them. When Sen's father fell seriously ill, Sen asked Jenice to move in with them to help care for him. Even though Jenice took on the responsibilities of both Sen and his father, she didn't complain about caring for Sen's father. She treated him with patience and kindness, even though Sen seemed uninterested. Now, Jenice faced the harsh reality that Sen was leaving her, and the love they once shared seemed to be a distant memory. Robert became very fond of Jenice. He noticed something she hadn't realized. The way his son treated her was unfair. One day, Robert said something mysterious to her. "You, my dear, were never meant to settle." His words confused her, and she couldn't stop thinking about them. When Robert's health improved, he suggested they move back to their own home. Janice was grateful that he was feeling better, but she was also exhausted from taking care of him. A few months later, tragedy struck Janice's family again. Her aunt passed away from a heart attack. Janice felt the pain deeply, even though her aunt's daughters seemed to be treated with more warmth. This aunt had cared for Janice after her mother died, and Janice loved her deeply. 3 days into mourning, her son Sinan yelled at her. "She's dead, Janice. Stop crying, stop talking about her." Janice replied, "It's only been 3 days. I haven't even cried much." Her grief was mostly quiet, but Sinan showed no patience for it. At the busy airport, Janice came back to reality. Part of her wanted to yell at Sinan or his mistress, but they were lost in the crowd. She stumbled out onto the street, her vision blurry from tears, bumping into people who avoided her. Finally, she found a quiet alley and sat on a snow-covered bench, letting her tears fall freely. The cold eventually woke her up, and she noticed a man sitting on the curb, covered in snow. At first, she thought he was crazy to sit in such cold weather, but lost in her own pain, she didn't feel like helping him. As she walked past him, though, she saw his sad, empty eyes, and something in her heart told her to turn back. She approached him and offered some money. He looked at her but didn't take it, just staring ahead. Janice felt unsure but asked, "Can I help you with something?" There was no answer. Then she suggested, "Maybe I could get you some tea or something." He gave her a faint smile, and that gave her some hope. Without waiting, she went into a nearby cafe, bought some hot tea and a sandwich, and returned to him. Helping him made her feel a little better, like she was doing something good despite her own problems. When she handed him the tea and sandwich, he finally looked at her with gratitude. As she walked away, a little lighter, she heard footsteps behind her. The man was standing there. "I'm sorry, miss. I forgot to thank you." "Thank you," he said softly. Janice smiled faintly. "No trouble. I hope things get better for you." He nodded, then started to leave. But Janice noticed he was shivering in the cold. She felt a strong urge to offer him more help. "Wait," she called after him. "Why don't you come to my place? You can warm up and I'll make you a hot meal." The man seemed surprised. "Are you sure? I'm just a homeless man." Janice, unfazed, answered calmly, "Have you seen any royalty around here? Everyone's different, that's all." She hailed a taxi, and the driver greeted her warmly at first, but became uneasy when Janice tried to help the man into the car. "Are you really bringing him with you?" the driver asked. "He's not getting in my car, ma'am. He's not clean, and I can't risk my car getting damaged. I'll have to cancel your ride," he insisted. Janice, angry at the driver's rudeness, reached into her purse and pulled out a large amount of cash. "Will this change your mind?" she asked, offering him the money. The driver quickly took the cash, counting it. A smile spread across his face. "All right then, come on in," he said to the homeless man. On the ride, the driver began talking more, complaining about low fares and chatting about the weather. When they reached Janice's home, the driver dropped them off quickly and left. Inside her warm house, the homeless man sighed with relief. "It's so cozy here," he said. "I'll make some food. Feel free to relax or take a hot shower. There are towels and a robe in the bathroom." The man seemed to feel comfortable, but Janice wondered what she was doing, letting a complete stranger into her home without even knowing his name. It was an impulsive decision, and she had no idea how it would affect her life. Later, the man came out of the bathroom looking much cleaner. "You look like a completely different person," Janice remarked. He chuckled and replied, "A fresh shower works wonders." Meanwhile, Janice had set the table, and the man, now introducing himself as Dylan, sat down and tasted the food she had prepared. He genuinely complimented her cooking, not just making casual remarks but sincerely appreciating the flavors. As she listened, Janice realized how long it had been since anyone had acknowledged her efforts. Dylan's appreciation made her feel valued, something she hadn't experienced in a long time. Feeling more comfortable, she asked, "So, what's your story?" Dylan's face changed and tears welled up in his eyes. He began to tell her about the tragic loss of his wife and daughter in a car accident 2 years ago. He survived the crash but lost everything. Dylan felt consumed by guilt, blaming himself for the accident. He turned to alcohol to numb his pain, which led to losing his job and eventually his home. He spent time on the streets, even scavenging for food. His life became a struggle, but Janice listened to his story with empathy. She'd assured him that he shouldn't blame himself for the accident and encouraged him to rebuild his life. Her words offered him hope, a chance for change. Dylan realized he wanted a better life, with a home, a job, and meaningful connections. Meeting Janice had sparked a new hope in him. As they finished their meal, Dylan awkwardly glanced at the borrowed clothes he was wearing. "I should return these clothes," he said. Janice smiled. "It's okay, don't worry about it." He seemed uneasy, so Janice offered to let him use her washing machine and invited him to stay the night. "I'm sorry for being a burden," Dylan said. "I don't know how to thank you." Janice reassured him. "Don't worry about it." Dylan then asked if he could use her computer. "Of course," Janice said, showing him where it was. As Dylan worked on his laptop, Janice sat in a living room, overwhelmed by her own thoughts and pain. She felt the need to share her struggles with the stranger who had trusted her with his own. But the words got stuck in her throat. Summoning her courage, she walked over to him and said, her voice trembling, I hope you don't think less of me for letting a stranger into my home. It's just my husband. Well, I don't know how to say it, but today he left for a vacation with his mistress. Dylan stopped typing, looking up at her in surprise. Really? That happened? He asked. Jenna nodded and gave him a quick summary of her situation. Dylan shook his head, disbelief on his face. I thought that kind of thing only happened in movies. I'm really sorry to hear that, he said sincerely. So, what's your next move? I'm not sure, Jenna replied. He might not agree with the idea. Dylan paused, then chuckled softly. Wait, let me get this straight. Your husband is out having fun with another woman, and you're worried he might not want a divorce. The situation was almost ridiculous, but Dylan could see the fear and confusion in Jenna's eyes. She was a kind, innocent woman struggling with overwhelming emotions. Are you afraid of him? Dylan asked gently. I don't know. We've been together for 5 years, and now, I don't know what to do, she said quietly. Dylan nodded sympathetically. Go ahead and rest, Jenna. We'll figure this out together. The next morning, Jenna woke to the sound of her alarm. She went into the living room and saw that Dylan was gone, leaving behind a note. Thank you until we meet again. The house suddenly felt quiet, and Jenna felt a wave of loneliness wash over her. She made herself some coffee and spent the next 2 weeks working long hours, coming home exhausted every night. 3 days after her husband left, Jenna gathered the courage to start the divorce process. She packed up all his things, including the robe Dylan had worn, and prepared to return them with the divorce papers. She also changed the locks on the house, wanting to make sure her space was secure. This house, inherited from her parents, was the one thing that truly belonged to her, but she feared she might have to fight for it. As Jenna thought about Dylan more than her husband, she realized that despite her husband's betrayal, she felt relief, not devastation. She was no longer living in the dark, deceived by a man she thought she knew. With her newfound freedom, Jenna's mood improved, and she imagined peaceful evenings at home, enjoying simple pleasures like making a salad and watching a movie. One evening, as she returned home from work, Jenna saw her husband, Seem, pacing outside. Remembering she had blocked his number, she felt a small sense of joy that he hadn't disrupted her day. Jenna, what the hell is going on? What did you do to the lock? And why did you block my number? I've been freezing out here, Seem shouted angrily. Jenna calmly faced him, a slight smile on her lips. I changed the lock. I blocked your number. Seem was briefly surprised but then became annoyed. Are you out of your mind? Who do you think you are? Give me the keys now and go take a walk while I make a call. Let's see how you like it. Instead of pulling out the keys, Jenna calmly took out a document and handed it to him. Here, these are the divorce papers. Seem, confused, asked, Divorce? Yes, Jenna replied. I know you didn't go to the Bahamas alone. I saw you with her. You can collect your things any day, just not today. Today, I don't want to see you. Seem took a few breaths and then smirked. Well, you were supposed to turn a blind eye and save our marriage, but you chose the hard way. I'm young, handsome, and interesting. Women like me. Jenna interrupted, looking at the driveway where she saw unfamiliar cars. Well, looks like you won't be sleeping on the streets tonight. Seem grabbed her hand tightly. You're going to do what I say. You thought you could just leave me. You're wrong. I'm going to make your life miserable. Give me the keys now. He raised his other hand, as if to strike her. Jenna closed her eyes, bracing for the worst. But when she opened them, no one was holding her hand anymore. It was Dylan's voice she heard asking, Jenna, are you okay? To her surprise, Dylan stood there, fists clenched, with several strong men holding Seem back. Jenna smiled. It's you. Dylan nodded. Yes, it's me. I was worried I wouldn't make it in time. Any chance you have more of those delicious meals? Jenna nodded, her eyes filled with tears. All the tension and stress of the past weeks broke free. She buried her face into Dylan's chest, crying on his coat as he gently patted her back. It's okay. Everything's okay now. Seem struggling to stand, watched silently, his earlier arrogance melting into stunned shock. Dylan's arrival not only protected Jenna but also marked a turning point in her life. It was the moment she let go of her past and embraced the possibility of a happier future. After the confrontation, Jenna sat in front of the television, sipping tea while Dylan shared more about his life. He revealed that he had been in the Secret Service for years, but after losing his family, he lost himself. He had walked away from everything and fell into a dark place. But meeting Jenna reminded him that life was worth living and that it was possible to start over. Jenna was surprised and a bit confused. "Secret Service?" she repeated. "Yes," Dylan nodded. "I couldn't reconnect with my colleagues until you reminded me that life is worth living, that we can start over." Jenna smiled, her gratitude clear. "Thank you for everything," she said softly. The calm that settled over her home was a stark contrast to the turmoil that had come before. Dylan had left without making promises, but his gratitude was clear. Despite Seam's actions, Dylan had found something positive. He even thanked Seam for his betrayal, saying if it hadn't happened, he and Jenna might never have crossed paths. 2 days passed, and Jenna returned to her quiet routine, but there was a sense of peace and curiosity about what lay ahead. One evening after work, she walked home and saw Dylan standing at the gate, a bouquet of flowers in his hands. He looked different, well-groomed, neatly dressed, and smiling at her with hope in his eyes. In that moment, Jenna understood the true meaning of the words her ex-husband's father had said, "You were never meant to settle." Now Jenna was ready to embrace the possibility of something better.